Okay, hello and welcome to chapter 137 of Attack on Titan. It's finally here. The wait has been so long for this chapter, but it's finally over. Chapter 137, it's right here in front of me. But before we get into the chapter, I just want to quickly cover a few things. I'll be super quick with it. If you want to skip to the actual reaction, skip to a time code, I'll put it somewhere on the screen. But I'll make this as quickly as possible. First of all, I'm not going to be uploading. I'm not going to be. With previous manga chapters, what I've done is I've uploaded the review to YouTube and the reaction to Vimeo. But as I mentioned in one of my previous reactions, that's really not good for me because having the part of the video that the majority of people actually watch on a different website isn't good for the state of my channel, right? It's not going to help me growing and stuff like that. And also posting on Vimeo costs a lot of money, so I'm trying to move my stuff back onto YouTube. And right now, I don't know how I can move my manga videos back onto YouTube whilst showing the pages. If anyone has any suggestions on how I can do that, being able to have the reaction on YouTube while showing the pages, but done in a way where I can kind of, not have my channel deleted, then go ahead and leave suggestions. I'm happy to hear them. But it was kind of a spur of the moment decision to do this, so I haven't had the time to really think it through before this chapter came out. So, yeah, for the time being, this is just gonna have to be how it is. I'm afraid. I don't like it, but it's YouTube. You know what YouTube's like. But yeah, if anyone has any suggestions to how I can improve it, feel free to let me know. Secondly, for anyone who's subscribed to my channel, I apologise for the lack of Hunter x Hunter content recently. There's been so much stuff going on in my personal life. It's not that I've stopped watching the show. I'm still watching it. It's just there's been so much stuff going on. I've barely had time to edit and upload videos. I'll go into more detail on that in my Hunter x Hunter reactions because I don't want to waste time in this video. But yeah, that's enough talking. I'm super hyped to read this chapter, so let's get into it. Alright, let's get going. Page 1. Oh, okay. Whoa. Oh, okay. I think, okay. Okay, we're getting, actual backstory now. Oh, I think... Okay, let's just read this. Long, long ago, when nothing but mere matter existed in this world, as countless masses of some unknown thing as... sorry, I'm fucking shooketh right now. As countless masses of some unknown things appeared, disappeared, and then appeared again, one of them eventually survived. We now know it as life. Wow. This is going to be a big chapter, isn't it? We're gonna find out the origins of everything, I think. I think this is the chapter. I think this is the chapter where we learn everything. Let's keep reading. Page 2. Okay. He actually is building sandcastles, that's amazing. The reason that life ultimately survived was because it was in its nature to multiply. Life took new forms in order to multiply, adapting to every kind of environment and eventually leading to us as we are now. It sought numbers, it sought spread, it sought abundance, and so, I just caught a glimpse of the title of this chapter, and so, this is to say the purpose of life is to multiply. Chapter 137, Titans. Oh, this is it! This is it! Oh my god, that's amazing. Okay, how does Zeke know this? Is it because he's empaths, maybe? I was actually going to say when reading the first pages, whenever Attack on Titan gives backstory and stuff, there's always a reason for it, right? Reading a notebook, being in contact with Yamir or Historia, right? There's always an actual reason given for the backstory. So I was about to mention actually why is it we're learning this, but they've answered that question already. Zeke is telling us. How does Zeke know? I guess we'll have to find out, probably due to him being empaths. This sand, these pebbles, the water, they don't seek to multiply, but life never stops in its frantic quest to do so. After all, death and extermination of the species runs counter to the goals of multiplying, yeah? That is why we face the punishment known as fear. I thought I was about to say Ymir. The punishment known as fear. And why that child so desperately sought to avoid such pain. Wow, look at that. It almost looks like an angel, doesn't it? With the wings coming out, which is very fitting. Something stronger, something larger. She gave birth to an undying body, and then she escaped to a world that was free of even death. I mean, yeah, makes sense. Living things have an innate fear of dying, don't they? So it makes sense. The girl was the founder Ymir. Oh, the girl was the founder Ymir. This is Armin talking. And this is the world free of death. In that case, what exactly is Ymir's goal? I myself spent an astounding amount of time here trying to understand her. In spite of all the strength she had, she could never defy King Fritz. Why was that? For 2,000 years she remained here, obeying him. What was the reason? And Zeke is looking down. He looks sad. Yes, she did still feel attached to the world she left behind. Eren was able to understand that, when I couldn't. And that is why Ymir went with him. You have to tell me. Isn't there some way of getting back to the outside world from here? Who knows? I think it's impossible to know. I haven't given up on anything yet. Why? Well, to continue to multiply? Is the continuation of your species that important a task to you? Oh, anti-baby Zeke over here. And Armin looks shocked. What's happening now could be called the miserable sight of life forms controlled by fear. A kind of fear brought about by completely pointless vital activities that, my friends, they're fighting right now. Yeah, Armin doesn't care about all this philosophical talk. He just wants to protect the people he loves, right? Because we can still save so many people from terror. What we're doing is fighting fear. What would be wrong with losing that fight? You know that to live means one day die, does it not? Who knows? Perhaps when final moments bring relief. So Zeke's like, what's the point in trying to stop them? You're gonna die eventually. It's kind of what Reiner said, right, to Eren in chapter 117, I believe it was, where he pinned Eren down and was like, why are you struggling so much? What do you have to live for? We're all gonna die eventually someday. Just sleep, right? It's very similar to what Reiner said. Maybe the end of your days being manipulated, all in the name of multiplication, without ever knowing if it means anything at all. And we see all the different people, Reiner, Jean, Connie, I think, maybe? I think it's a bit difficult to tell from that angle. Mikasa, Annie, yeah. Feels like freedom. Oh, there's a leaf in the sand. Interesting. Like the leaves that were by that tree that Eren and Mikasa were by. Why is that in paths? That's interesting. The sun was starting to set. We were running to a tree on the hill. The three of us were racing. Eren brought up the idea and took off out of nowhere. Mikasa ran too, but stayed behind him on purpose. And of course, I was dead last. But the breeze was nice and warm that day. Just running felt good. Leaves fluttered everywhere, and for some reason, I thought then, maybe the reason I was born was so the three of us could be racing there. And Zeke opens his eyes a little. I thought the same thing when I read the books at home on a rainy day. When a squirrel ate some nuts I gave it. When we walked around the market too, I felt it. That these trivial moments might actually be precious. And then he holds up a baseball, which of course is going to make Zeke think of Xavier, right? Zeke's baseball, Armin's leaf, right? That's... this? It was buried in the sand. Why is that? Who knows? But to my eyes, even if there's no need for something like this in order to multiply, it's still something incredibly precious. And to Zeke, it's appearing as a baseball bat. It's like, oh, that's good. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I agree with Armin here, right? Like, you can't spend your entire life just being afraid of death and thinking everything's pointless because you're going to die one day, you know? You get those things of like, you know, would it have been easier to have just not even been born at all? Like Zeke would say, right? The greatest blessing in this world is to have never been born in the first place. But as terrifying as death can be, the fact that you get to live and you get to experience those seemingly small moments, like, you know, just hanging out with family, you know, talking to a friend, just these small unimportant moments, but just being alive and having the ability to experience those things is a blessing in and of itself, and it's worth all the hardships you have to face in life to have them, you know? And then we get, flashbacks of Zeke playing baseball with Xavier. Yes, you're right. Just throwing, catching, and throwing again. That simple repetition. Sorry, I keep pausing to check the recording's still going, because I'm always super paranoid that the recording's going to stop. Wow. I'm going to have to need time to think about this, because this is a very sudden change for Zeke's character, right? It seems like he's going to side with Armin here, but it's a very sudden change considering he's dedicated his entire life and potentially like ridiculously high amounts of years in the Paths world, dedicated to this idea of, do we really need to procreate? Do we really need to continue life and all that stuff? Only for it to be changed very suddenly. But at the same time, one could make the argument of it's a case of, the lie he believes, right? And all he needed was someone to say, because he's someone who's never really been loved his entire life, right? Well, he was, but you get what I mean. Like, his dad was using him as a tool, his brother was using him as a tool, and he didn't really have any real friends. So, while it may seem silly for his opinion to change so quickly, it's also a reality that Zeke hasn't lived a normal life, and maybe he hasn't really had anyone who can deliver these very simple messages to him, right? Simple stuff, like this. So whether or not I think this is a good thing, that he changes so suddenly, I'm going to have to, think it over, right? I'll have to think it over. It could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, I'll have to think about it. Yeah, and then he hands the ball over to Zeke. It doesn't mean a thing, but you're right. I would have much rather just kept on playing catch. Oh, man. Again, it's like that panel of Magath, right? Where Magath was like, I finally realised how much happier I would have been if those kids had just been able to live normal lives, right? And then you've got all the people behind them. Xavier, Galliard, Marcel, Yamir even, interesting. Kruger, Grisha. These are all Titan shifters, is the thing, right? Like, we're not seeing any non-Titan shifters here. So these could actually be them, potentially, like the real ones. We'd have to see. And then looking back, they're definitely, it's not a metaphor, at least. It's not like Erwin and Hanji where they're not actually there. Zeke and Armin seem to actually be looking at them. Let's see. Okay, but we don't get to see what happens next. Wonderful. Okay, but we're at the we're back at the battle though, so this is fun. All right, Eren and the Rumbling still moving towards that tower. Considering how quickly the Rumbling has crossed an entire continent, you'd think they'd have reached this small pillar by now, but I guess in a manga time is kind of relative because it's all done in panels, right? Jean is still trying to head towards the neck. Piek's had her hand cut off. Piek, and then Jean comes and grabs her. Nice. I can keep fighting once my arm's fixed. You're at your limit. We need to retreat back to where Reiner... Reiner's been pinned down. That's not good. But yeah, that's the thing that Piek mentioned, right, is that as long as she doesn't get caught, she can keep fighting forever. But the trade-off is her Titan and her herself have very slow regeneration. So she can continue fighting for a long time, but if she gets hurt, she's going to need a long time to recover from that, right? So it's kind of like a glass cannon. Not really a glass cannon in the traditional sense, right? But in the kind of way where it's it's really good, but once it gets damaged, that's a real problem, right? You can't just put it back together immediately. That's not good. It's nice that the one standing on him is like a Reaper. But yeah, he's been pinned down by spears and stuff. Can I just say, right? Ryan is holding off all these Warhammer Titans by himself. Do you remember how difficult it was for Eren to fight one Warhammer Titan? Fucking props to him for being able to withstand all these different Titans at once. I mean, obviously not indefinitely, but you get what I mean. And Ryan looks up. Jean, Piek, now being... Titans are chasing them as well. This doesn't look good for anyone. Huh? And it's the... Cappy. Not a pig. No, Cappy. Okay, this doesn't look like a good situation. And then... Female Titan gets grabbed by what looks like an armored Titan, it seems like. Yeah, that's not good. Oh, and she's getting swarmed too. Yeah, this is just bad for everybody. Yeah, this is just really bad for everybody now. Oh, what's going to happen now? Something's going to happen, right? Unless it's just a montage of characters dying. Could you imagine? But something's got to happen to, like, change things around, right? Oh. Is that what But then Bertolt's hand sweeps down. Huh? Okay. Is Bertolt conscious? I think he might be, right? I mean, yeah, it looks like he just protected Annie. I think that's what just happened. Ah. Wow. So yeah, Bertolt swings down, knocks the Titans off of Annie. She looks up, Bertolt looks down at him. Wow. The question is, though, if he is conscious, then how, right? That's the question. Like, how is he gain conscious? Is it because Armin's in paths, maybe? And he's still alive? So, like, because Armin's in paths and alive, it creates some kind of... Oh, could you imagine if it was a thing? Oh, here's an idea. What if, from within the paths dimension, Zeke and Armin were somehow able to allow the previous Titan shifters that they knew, like Xavier, Marcel, Galliard, Berthold, to regain their consciousness? That would be interesting. Could you imagine if that's what happened? Let's keep reading. What? It is what happened. It's totally what happened. Okay. And then Jean and Pierre are looking up. Parco, Marcel. Yep, we see Parco and Marcel ripping out the back of the napes of these other Jaw Titans. Wow. Galliard. And then something happens with Reiner. He looks over his back. Ymir! Wow. This is so cool. I was right as well. This is so cool. Oh, man. But why, though, is the thing, right? Okay. Ignoring my fanboy feelings, because from a fan perspective, this is fucking awesome, right? But thinking of it logically, why did this happen, right? It's clear that they can't just control their powers because fuck it, why not? Because if they could, then they would have been doing it already, you know what I mean? So something must have happened between then and now that has allowed them to retake control, which is probably related to Zeke and Armin being empaths, but I guess we'll probably see what happened, right? But man, this is so cool seeing everyone back. I can already tell that when this chapter gets animated, it's going to be so amazing seeing like Ymir again, like actual Ymir. I hope we get to see... I keep putting my finger up. I hope we get to see Xavier's Titan form as well. I wonder if it's like a whale, like so many people speculated. He's just uselessly flopping along a rib cage. Did he just save us, Bertolt? I don't know, but I'm not wasting this opportunity. And she goes up towards the Okapi Titan. Oh, and something hits it. Gabby hits it. Nice, right in the eye. Good shot, Gabby. And it falls... Yep, it's sliding down. It's trying to stop itself with its claws, but it can't quite get it. Give Armin, and she swings, cuts open the jaw, back. Nice. A nice reference to how she was all like, give Eren back with the female Titan in Season 1. Nice. Armin gets launched out. He's spitting up all that tentacle hell fluid. Ooh. Oh, but it looks like the Okapi sent its tongue out and pierced through Armin's leg. Eef. This is one tough Titan, isn't it? Jesus. Huh? Oh. Oh, Armin. Was that Armin? No, no, wait. What? I'm confused. Wait, let me go back a page. Oh, Armin still has the Thunder Spears on him. Okay, I was wondering who fired that Thunder Spear because it looked like Armin. Like, wait, Armin has Thunder Spears? Yeah, he does have Thunder Spears. He does. Okay, nice. Armin saved himself. That's actually nice. I like the fact that Armin kind of saved himself there. That's a good little touch. But then another one gets shot, and I think that's Connie? Yeah, I think that's Connie. Cuts off the tongue again. She lands. Annie catches him. Nice. Armin. Sorry, everyone, but we're okay now. Annie, behind you. Oh. Oh my god, it's Grisha! And it's Grisha and Kruger. Wow. That's awesome. Is that Ram? Because we got Grisha, Kruger, and then one that looks like it has maybe like a ram, a goat head. Is that Xavier? Wow, this is awesome. It's so cool seeing all of these, like, old Titan shifters show up again, man. I like how Krug is doing the exact same movement he did with the ship, right? When he gets on the shoulders and breaks it, but he's doing it with a Titan. Now it's like when you're playing a fighting game and you only know one combination, so you just use it over and over and over and over again. It's like, this is my grab attack. I don't know anything else. Okay. What's going on? Yeah, it looks like the Titan shifters, specifically the ones that we know, are rebelling. Not all of them. Not all of them are rebelling, just the ones that we know, which is interesting. The Titans are helping us? Seems that way. Hey. But wait a minute, let me think about this. In order for these Titans to be helping intentionally, that would require all of them to agree with the Alliance. Whether that makes sense is something I'd have to think about. We can take into mind, considering how paths works, where an instance, a fraction of a second in the real world can be hours or even years in the paths dimension. That's plenty of time for convincing, right? So I'm not going to say it doesn't make any sense, but in terms of would each of these individual characters agree what Eren's doing, I'd have to, think about that on a case-by-case basis, right? I'm not going to say for sure now. I'll think about that. What's going on? Yep. Hey, over here. What's that? It's a Titan talking. No way. It's fucking Zeke. It's not even a Titan, it's Zeke. You wanted to meet me, didn't you, Levi? I can't say I wanted to do the same. Zeke. This fucking half-naked Zeke appearing from the bones. What the hell is going on right now? I can't say I want to do the same. Oh. What the hell's going on? It's thanks to Mr. Zeke. He woke up everyone who was asleep in the world of the paths where neither life nor death exists. Every Eldian is connected to one another by the path, I think. Oh, I think it's because the founder Ymir wanted to be connected. Because she wants something from us. Oh, Bertolt. Oh, man. Master Xavier. Wow, this is cool. Our dream was never realized. I still don't think the euthanization plan was mistaken, but if it meant getting to play catch with you again, I guess I wouldn't mind being born once more after all. Again, I feel like this is the kind of chapter where I'm enjoying it a lot now because I'm reading through it the first time, and like as a fan, it's cool seeing all these characters back. In terms of what I think about it, like in terms of like more of a critical perspective, I definitely have to think about it because it's cool, but Zeke also did kind of change his motivation pretty quickly. It's cool seeing all these characters back, but they also kind of joined Armin's side pretty quickly. I'm gonna have to think about it, is what I'm saying. That doesn't mean I dislike it. That doesn't mean I like it either. It just means I'm gonna have to think it over. I'm not gonna come to some immediate conclusion. I took everything from you. Your life, your power, even your precious memories. That's why I know we can't just stay here. Armin talking to Bertolt. Yeah, lend me your strength. And we've got Zeke. This is so weird, seeing Zeke literally just pop up from the ribs, the bones of this Titan. What a beautiful day it is. If only I'd realised that earlier. Well, after all the killing I've done, that's asking for too much. Oh my. This does feel very like... what's the word? This does feel very like Avengers-y, you know what I mean? Where it's like, and then all the heroes show up to save the day, It does kind of give off that kind of like almost cartoonish, perfect happy ending vibe. But that's kind of how Attack on Titan works, isn't it? Sometimes where it's like, it seems like everything's going well and then shit just goes fucking crashing down for everyone. So let's see how this plays out. Oh! And then, yep, Zeke just fucking... Levi just fucking kills him. Yep, so I take it that's the end of Zeke then, right? Oh, man. It's a sad end to his character, honestly. But, I mean, I would have liked to have seen more of him, but... man. But yeah, I'm not exactly surprised that Levi would kill him. The rumbling. It stopped. Oh. It did? Interesting. Why is that? Oh, wait, so were they actually right the whole time that killing Zeke was enough to stop the rumbling? Were they actually right about that? I assumed that was like a misconception, right? That was caused by their lack of understanding of what was really going on, but I guess maybe actually killing Zeke was enough to stop the rumbling after all. Huh. Interesting. Okay. And then, yeah, we've got all the old Titans helping out with Reiner and Jean and Peck and all them. Go, Jean. And Jean charges forward, grabs the explosive. You stupid little suicidal blockhead. Ah! And then, yeah, you can see the tears, welling up in his eyes. But this isn't anything new to Jean, right? Jean has always been the one where, in these situations where they've had to kill people they care about, Jean's always been the one who's like, we have to do this. Let's not let our emotions get in the way. So it makes sense. And then they, boom, blow up the neck. Eren's head detaches. And then, yep, here comes the spine. Here comes the DNA monster. Oh, okay. There it is. It's doing it again. Yeah, it's going after Eren the same way it did in chapter 119. It's going after Eren's head. Oh, Reiner grabbed it. Oh, what the hell is even going on there? Nice. I think it's like flinging Reiner around. Jean, Pieck, we need to get away quick. Armin's gonna blow these bones to pieces. Oh no. But wait, Reiner, oh, that's true actually. The armored titan is strong enough to survive the Colossal's explosion. I forgot about that. But wait, Reiner, the armored titan should be able to withstand the Colossus Titan's explosion. And most of all, Reiner's prepared for the consequences. To let this opportunity get away would be to let that go to waste. Oh, Reiner, be okay, Reiner. I mean, I don't want Reiner to have to sacrifice himself, man, but we'll see. And then the bird's flying away. Thank you. Oh, that's a good panel. That's a good panel. Without all of your strength, it wouldn't have been Eren. Ooh, and then, yeah. Wow, that's a good panel. Ooh. Man. And then, yeah, Armin blows up. Eren's skeleton gets all wibbly-wobbly into pieces. We've got to be close to the end of the chapter now, right? Oh, I don't want the chapter to end, man. I wish it could just keep going for like 500 pages. I know that's not going to happen, though. But we've got to be close to the end at this point, though. Oh, no, that is the end. No! Oh, I thought we were just close to the end, not at the end. Oh, damn it, man. Ugh. Okay. Wow, what do I think of that chapter? Wow, I'm going to have to think about this, man. Oof. Alright, so that was chapter 137, and man, I think this is actually the first chapter I've read where I'm not really sure what to think about it. Because with previous chapters that have been kind of controversial at the time, like 119 for example, I was kind of like, okay, you guys are iffy on it, but I really liked it, so fuck off. For this one though, I'm not going to say I didn't like it, but I definitely have that vibe of like, this is going to be a controversial chapter, I feel like, I feel like this is definitely going to be a controversial chapter. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like with chapters like 119, which ended up being controversial, I didn't think it would be while reading it. I was just like, yeah, this is great, I'm enjoying this. With this one, I really enjoyed it as I was reading, but I could definitely see this being a more controversial chapter. The fact that the rumbling was ended this chapter... Yeah. The fact that the rumbling was ended this chapter doesn't surprise me. I was already anticipating they would probably end because Attack on Titan, first and foremost, has always been a story-driven show. And when it comes to their arcs, they usually do a thing where like the final battle happens, but then there's a few chapters or episodes of dialogue after that. So the fact that the rumbling ended this chapter doesn't really surprise me at all. As for the but I'll get into that in a second. So yeah, As for how it happened, again, that's something I'll really have to think about. This chapter felt very quick. I think fast is the one word I could use to describe this. Zeke's character was very fast. All the characters actually were very fast. It was a very quick shift from absolutely no hope to everything working out. So, but yeah, so let's think about this. Okay, let's go. I'll go through the chapter again, and I'll explain my thoughts as we go through. So at the start of the chapter, I was thinking this might be a chapter dedicated to the origin of the Titans, but that's not the case. It does kind of give us a vague origin. It kind of shows us that this spine-like creature might have been something that existed in the planet's oceans, years and years and years ago, and is a primordial form of life. That seems to be what it's hinting at here, right? It didn't give us a detailed, half a chapter long explanation, but it seems to be hinting at the idea that this weird spinal thing isn't an alien or a supernatural creature, it's just life. It's a primordial creature that... But then that doesn't answer questions though, because that doesn't answer the Titan origin question, because then how would a primordial creature be able to create the paths dimension, right? So I was thinking this would serve as an explanation, even if it's not fully explained, but actually no, it wouldn't. This wouldn't serve as a full explanation, because it doesn't explain how the paths dimension exists. So yeah, that's not correct. This definitely gives us more hints, potentially, but it's not a full explanation for sure. Unless I'm just an idiot. Unless I'm just an idiot and this is like an actual, real historical creature, and I'm just assuming it's meant to be the spine creature, which it could entirely not be. I don't know. But I feel like either way, this definitely isn't a full explanation of the Titan ability, because it doesn't explain paths, right? Or the time-bending ability of paths. Yeah. And we get... See, because the spine creature looks similar to this creature, but not the same. It's definitely a different thing, but it looks very similar. And here Zeke is talking about his kind of philosophy on life, right? That life exists to multiply and to continue and to procreate, and as a result it develops a natural fear of dying. It develops, a desire to avoid pain and suffering and ending, because that's counterintuitive to the ultimate goal of multiplying and continuing to exist. And yeah. Something stronger, something larger. She gave birth to an undying body, and then she escaped to a world that was free. Ymir... So it's saying kind of, I guess, that Ymir created the Paths world out of that natural fear that all living creatures had. She created a body that would never die, a world that would never end, so that she and, her descendants could live free of that fear of the natural progression of things, right? And then Zeke is like, this is why I think... And then, and Armin's like, okay, so... Let me reread this quick. So, Ymir the founder... in that case, what exactly is Ymir's goal? In 2,000 years she remained obedient. She did still feel attached to the world she left behind. Aaron was able to understand that when I couldn't. And that's why Ymir went with him. I feel like I'm going to need to read this a couple more times and go a couple days and really kind of mull over in my head to fully understand. So, is what's meant to be implied here? I could be wrong, but is the implication here meant to be that Ymir wished for a world without death, so that she didn't have to fear the end of her life? But the reason she remained behind and served the king is because despite having that world, she still had an attachment to the place she came from. And now she's destroying this world so she can fully move on to this undying, everlasting world. Is that kind of what's being kind of presented here? I'm not sure if that's what it meant to be or whether I'm just misinterpreting it. Again, I'm going to have to really think, interact with people, think this over for a few days, really kind of go over it in my head and think about it, I'll see what I think. But how did Zeke escape from the Paths dimension? How did he get out? That's something that'll need to be explained. That's definitely something that'll need to be explained. But yeah, so I guess we get a little more of a look into the origins of Ymir and why she created the Paths dimension in the first place, which makes sense. But then the Paths dimension, in the end, was very much a prison for her, wasn't it, right? She didn't seem to be happy here. She was trapped here as a slave, building Titans. So would it make sense for her to want to destroy the world? And I don't know, because I always thought her motivation was like that she wanted to get revenge on the world that had, enslaved her and wronged her and kept her a slave for so long, right? So, maybe it's a mix of the two things. She wants to destroy this world that she hates and be free from these people and the Titan King, the Titan Empire and all this stuff so that she can live forever in peace, maybe? I don't know. It's difficult to say. I'm not sure. This is my first time reading, so I'm going to misunderstand things. It'll take time for me to kind of like go, oh, that's what it meant. And in a month's time, I'll look back on my reaction to this chat and be like, what the fuck was I thinking? But yeah. And Armin is like, well, how can we escape Paths? We need to stop the rumbling. And Zeke's like, well, what's the point? Like, is saving our friends really that important? We're just life forms, driven by fear. Everything that's happened right now, all the suffering and pain, is a result of our own fear of death being controlled by a desire to live, which is objectively correct, right? He is correct in saying that. The desire to live is objectively what has caused this event, right? Eren doesn't want his friends to die. The people of the world don't want to die. This entire conflict at its core is a desire from people to live who feel as though they can't continue to live while the opposing groups themselves live, right? Because of the threat of the rumbling or the threat of the outside world, which is perpetuated by a cycle of hatred, right? That desire to live, that desire to continue moving forward has become, in a way, dangerous because the cycle of hate has created a situation in which people feel as though they can't live in peace so long as the opposing group survives. So, in a sense, Zeke is correct here, right? The issue is that, okay, this current situation comes from a desire to live, doesn't equal, therefore we shouldn't live, right? And that's the difference in Armin and Zeke's philosophies, and I definitely agree more with Armin here than Zeke. Because I've said in the past that in regards to all the plans we've seen, I think Zeke's plan was one of the better ones. If we assume that in order for peace to be achieved, one side has to die, like, of course there's a bunch of plans if we take into account the idea that peace can be achieved between them, right? But if we go under the assumption that that's impossible, and that one side has to die, otherwise peace can never be achieved, if we go under that assumption, I'd say Zeke's plan is one of the better plans. But, even though I say that, and I still stand by that, that doesn't mean I actually agree with the plan and the philosophy overall. It just means in that very specific circumstance I think it makes sense. But overall, I definitely agree with Armin more than Zeke here. Zeke has this logic of like, well, all of this suffering and pain is caused by the desire to live, the desire to continue. If we just weren't born at all, then we wouldn't have to go through all this. And Armin's like, why are you going on with this philosophical nonsense? My friends are dying out there. I need to save them, right? Yeah. That to live means to die one day, does it not? And Zeke's like, why do we need to save them? You will die eventually someday, which calls back to kind of Reiner's motivation. Well, not his motivation, but kind of the speech Reiner gave to Eren, right? Where he was like, why are you continuing to fight? Why are you pushing forward? What do you have to live for now, right? Well, you're going to die soon anyway, regardless. Even if you win, you're only going to live for a couple more years. Why do you keep on punishing yourself and suffering, right? And this is kind of similar to what Zeke's saying here. Why should I bother going out and saving them, To live means to die. And what's so bad about that? Maybe to die means being freed from this life, which, from his perspective, is like a curse. He's never appreciated life. He's always seen it as something filled with pain and suffering, right? He's always viewed life as kind of the source of the world's issues in a way. The greatest blessing is to have never been born in this world to begin with. I didn't kill those soldiers. I saved their children from being born into this cruel world, right? He's always kind of viewed just even being born to begin with as sort of a curse. And then Armin, right, fires back with what I agree with in this thing. He picks up the leaf, the small leaf that brings back the memory of him and Armin and Mikasa living a simple life as children. He talks about how, I thought that maybe the whole reason I was alive to begin with was just to be able to experience those things, Maybe I don't need some grand purpose. Maybe just running around and racing with my friends is enough to be worth living for, right? And then he passes the leaf to Zeke, and it turns into a baseball, and it reminds Zeke of the simple things in his life, playing catch with Xavier, those simple moments which, although they're far less grand than saving an entire race of people, or destroying a nation, or serving as the top lieutenant in the biggest military on the planet, it's ultimately the thing that brought him the most happiness and joy in his entire life. These simple things that make life worth living, right? That all the fear and pain you go through in life is worth it to be able to experience those small moments of happiness, right? And I definitely agree with Armin a lot more here. I think he's completely right. Now, this is where we get into Zeke's very sudden change, and this is something that I'm iffy on, because I think it does make sense it does make sense, right? Zeke as a character is someone who's never really been loved by anyone. Like I mentioned before during the reaction, his father saw him as a weapon to free Eldia. His brother saw him as a tool to access the Founding Titan and never really cared about him, right? His allies, they did like him, but he was an ally on the battlefield, not like a close personal friend, The only people he's ever known, who have been family have either betrayed him or he's hated them, right? So for him, it may seem similar to us like, oh, well, live for the simple things, right? And you may think, oh, what, Zeke, after all this time, after a lifetime of, wanting to end the Eldians, would just change like that? He'd change his opinion. I think it makes sense because Zeke as a character is someone who's probably never had this kind of thing said to him, right? He's never gone through an experience of just like, yeah, maybe you don't need to live for some grand purpose, right? His father wanted him to save the Eldians. Xavier, while Xavier treated him way better than Grisha did, he wanted Zeke to, destroy the Eldians, right? They were kind of groomed for the other opposite. With Eren and with Marley, he was the warrior chief. Zeke, with Eren, he was the child of royal blood who would allow him to access paths and save the world. Zeke has always, as a human, lived for these big, grand goals. Literally since his childhood, when he was being groomed by Grisha to be the savior of Eldia, he has always been a person who has been groomed and manipulated in the direction of a grand purpose. And so this might be literally the first time in his life someone has actually been like, no, you can just live for the simple things, like talking to your friends and playing catch with your father figure. You don't need some grand purpose to live for, right? So I think for Zeke specifically, personally, I think this change in motivation does make sense, because I think it fits with his character as someone who has constantly been used for some grand purpose and never really had his own goals, His freeing Eldia was Grisha's goal. Destroying Eldia was Xavier's goal, He's always lived for the grand goals of someone else. So I think him coming to a realization of all this time I've been ignoring what it really means to live makes sense. The issue is that it was so fast. It was like one conversation. He spent his entire life and potentially thousands of years worth of time in the Paths dimension completely set on his viewpoint and his mindset, and that got changed in like one conversation. Are you telling me that if Armin 4 years ago had just talked to Zeke and be like, hey, play baseball, Zeke would be like, oh my god, you're right, I don't need to euthanize the Eldians. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like, well, could Armin have not just done this like 3 years ago and then suddenly fucking problem solved? We don't need to worry about the euthanasia plan anymore. Euthanasia plan, So I think the change in motivation makes sense, personally. I also think that it happening for something as simple as like a conversation, I think that's acceptable given the life Zeke has led. But the fact that it happened so quickly, for this is something I feel like maybe should have happened over a longer period of time. Like, maybe when he's with Xavier, the seeds are planted a little bit. Like, maybe Xavier makes some comments about this and Zeke hears them, but he's so focused on the Eldia euthanasia plan, he kind of moves past it. And then maybe when he's talking with Eren and then with other characters, it kind of, the seeds get planted again, but he kind of pushes it down. It's like, no, I have this this grand purpose, and then this purpose gets destroyed when the rumbling happens, and he goes through some more moments of maybe realizing this a little bit but kind of not accepting it, and then finally when his motivation is destroyed, he has no reason to continue living, he meets Armin, and this final conversation is what pushes him over the edge. Maybe something like that would work better. And hell, maybe that is what happened, and if I go back and reread, I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right, this is what happened, like I can see the hints now. But what I'm saying is, like, I like it, I think it makes sense, but I feel like maybe it should have happened over a longer period of time, because it feels pretty quick, is what I'm saying. Again, though, in terms of my actual final opinion on the chapter, I'm definitely going to have to spend some time thinking about it. I definitely enjoyed the chapter. It's a very, like, fan... what's the word? Like, fan servicey kind of enjoyable chapter, right? So if you were to ask me, did I like this chapter in terms of enjoying it? 100%, 10 out of 10. It was an amazingly enjoyable chapter. I loved every second of reading it. The critical side of me, however, is like, there are some potential issues I see here, which is actually the first time I think I felt that way after reading a chapter. It doesn't mean a thing, but you're right. I would have much rather just kept on playing catch. Again, that idea that Zeke'S entire life has been working towards some grand goal, and now he's realising that maybe I didn't need some grand purpose, maybe just living and playing catch with my father figure would have been enough, you know? And they meet all the people in Pats who are conveniently there and wake them up, whatever that means. Yeah, we see everything's not good. Piek's injured, Jean's about to get nommed on, Ryan is pinned down by Warhammer Titans, everyone's screwed, Annie's been pinned down by Armored Titans, and then whoosh, oh, loading, Bertolt swings his big arm down, smacks the Titans off of Annie and saves her, which, by the way, is amazing. As someone who always felt really bad about the fact that Bertolt and Annie never got any kind of, like, moments together because Bertolt fucking died, it's nice to see this little moment here. It's very nice. It's very nice to see this little moment of Bertolt kind of waking up, the eye contact between the two of them, Annie realising maybe what happened, Bertolt looking down at Annie, getting to see her with his eyes one more time, you know? Because he died, like, calling out to Annie and Ryan. He never got to see them again, and even though it's still sad that he never really got to reconcile with her, him at least being able to, like, look at her, see her, save her, and be like, yeah, no, I saved you, you know I saved you, you know, goodbye, kind of thing. It's nice. It's not great because it's like it still sucks that he fucking died, but it's nice, you know. As for all the Titan shifters kind of still existing in the Pats world, I think that makes sense because we've seen hints of that for ages, right? All the way back when Armin ate Bertolt in Season 3, Part 2, we saw that Bertolt, in some capacity, seems to still be present within Armin, right? It hurts so bad. And then we've seen, there's been instances multiple times throughout the show in which it's been hinted at that people, in some capacity, continue to live on within the Pats dimension, right? Ymir and Eren being a prime example of that, right? So, them showing up in the Pats dimension isn't too surprising. As for why they just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, that's a bit weird. I'd have to think about that. It's kind of convenient they just happen to be there. And the chapter is not loading for me now, so I'm going to have to kind of do some talking. And so, and then we get this amazing scene where all the past Titan shifters reappear to help out, right? We get, I think, who was the first one? The first one was Bertolt. We get Galliard and Marcel, who I think rescue Piek and Jean. We get Ymir, which is amazing, who rescues Rainer. We even get Grisha and Kruger, who even though I saw them like 5 pages ago, for some reason I didn't expect to see them show up, along with Xavier, who was like a goat. I remember a lot of people theorizing that he might be a whale or something, but no, he seems like he's a kind of goat creature, which is fun. I wonder what made his Titan useless in war then. Maybe he just wasn't a good fighter, I guess. That's a possibility. The manga chapters aren't actually loading up for me right now, so I can't, like... Let me just quickly check something. Let's see if it's been... It has, okay. I can look at it on here now. It's been uploaded to, like, another completely official and legal site. But yeah. And then, yeah. So... all these Titan shifters appear. Mikasa frees Armin with a slight callback to like all the times she's gone after Eren, being like, give Eren back, and now it's like, give Armin back. It's a nice little, it's not like the most amazing callback. It might not even be an actual callback, but it's just, it's very reminiscent. Armin kind of saves himself a bit with the Thunder Spear, which is a nice touch. Connie comes in and helps. And then we see Zeke. Zeke appears. Zeke appears out of a fucking ribcage. Oof. And Levi gets his fucking PTSD attack upon seeing Levi, right? So I guess... So the reason Zeke gave himself up here, right? He didn't die because it's like, lol, I appreciate life now, time to die, He died because his power is what was powering the rumbling, right? His royal blood is what allowed the rumbling to continue. In which case, killing him would be enough to stop it. I thought that was a misconception, right? When they talked about that previous chapters, I thought what was going on is Eren now had access to the Founding Titan power because of the big centipede thing in him, right? And that's why his Titan shifter looked so different. And therefore, Eren didn't actually need Zeke. Zeke was the catalyst with which he gained that power, but now he actually has the power. That was my assumption. But I guess not. I guess killing Zeke actually was enough to stop the rumbling, which is interesting. Then why does Eren's Titan look so different? I guess that's just... I guess maybe he can look different without having new powers. It's interesting. Also, how did Zeke escape paths? How did that happen? Maybe we'll get a flashback next chapter explaining how this actually happened, like how Zeke was able to get out of the paths dimension. Because, I mean, I suppose it's always possible there is an explanation, right? It's not like it's completely impossible, but you know what I mean, right? It would be nice to get an explanation as to why he went from, I don't know if we can escape paths, to I'm going to pop half my body out of Eren's ribcage and wave hello to my frenemies, right? And then, yeah. Zeke and Armin wake up the Titan Shifters. Why the Titan Shifters are there? I don't know. But Paths also does have like weird mental thingy-majiggies going on. Armin was seeing Bertolt all the time, stuff like that. So it seems as though with Titan Shifters and Eldians in general being connected to each other, it's not out of the realm of possibility that their presence is somehow related to, like, Interestingly enough, though, in this scene where we see Armin and Zeke meeting all of the shifters and waking them up, we can see Ymir in the foreground. Now that's interesting. That makes me wonder what the hell's going on, And also, there's another shot where we see, like, Reiner's mum, I think. I'll have to take a look at that in a minute. But yeah, we see Ymir in the foreground. I wonder what that's meant to be. Is she just watching and letting this happen? I wonder why she's doing that. Why she's... that's interesting. That is interesting. Again, there's a lot of details in this chapter I'll have to think about. The fact that Ymir is just stood there and kind of watching as this happens and seemingly not interfering. Interesting. And then Armin does look over and sees Ymir. That's interesting. That's an important thing. Armin looks over and sees Ymir standing there as she thinks. Every Eldian is connected to one another by paths. I think it's because the founder Ymir wants to be connected because she wants something from us. And then Armin and Zeke kind of have one-sided conversations with the people they're kind of connected to, right? Yeah. Again, I feel like I'm either going to need more time to kind of process this, or maybe we might even get a flashback in a future chapter kind of going into more detail about exactly what happened here, how Zeke got out of paths, what Ymir was kind of standing there, why she didn't interfere with this, And then Zeke appears. What a beautiful day it is. If only I'd realised that earlier. Well, after all the killing I've done, that's asking for too much. And then, boop, he gets his head cut off. Oh yeah, and that's the end of Zeke, alright. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. I really don't know how I feel about that, Zeke dying that way. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense that Levi would kill Zeke, right? It makes sense. It's not like it hasn't been foreshadowed for fucking 10 years or whatever that Levi was going to kill Zeke eventually, right? It's obvious. It being so sudden and, like, unceremonious, Like, he gets a nice little line here, and I can imagine this being a very beautiful moment in the anime where Zeke appears, he looks up, what a beautiful day it is. If only I'd realised it earlier. I could imagine this being a very beautiful moment in the anime. Not that it isn't a beautiful moment here, but I mean, like, even more so when it's got music and animation and beautiful colours. I could imagine this being, not that it isn't now, but even more so a very, like, touching moment. But, like, man, Zeke has always been one of my favourite characters, so, like, having him go out so unceremoniously, even if it does make sense, I've got mixed feelings on that. I figured he might play a larger role. I mean, he did play a pretty large role. But you know what I mean, right? I figured he'd play a slightly larger role than I am the guy who will die in, like, 5 seconds to allow the ending to happen. Oh, man. Bye-bye, Zeke. I'll miss you. I'm not very emotional right now, but that doesn't mean I don't care. Like, Zeke is one of my favourite characters. I do care a lot. And here we see, this is the shot I was talking about. The Eldians looking at the rumbling. Yeah, so we don't get a follow-up yet on what was happening with the people shooting each other, but we can see that at least a group of Eldians, with Reiner's mum, for example, are alive. So what happened with the gunshots and stuff, we'll probably get a follow-up on that, like, next chapter or the chapter after. The rumbling, it stopped. So I guess without the founding power to control them, they stopped their orders. Because that's one thing I saw floating around a lot, which is like, what if Eren is killed, right? But, well, the last order he gave was to do the rumbling, so even with him gone and the power gone, well, they're going to keep doing their orders anyway because they're just doing the last thing they were told to do. But no, it seems as though cutting off the power kind of turned them back into mindless drones who aren't following orders. But then they are still Titans, right? So wouldn't they now be, like, going after all the people? You know what I mean? It's like Titans, even when they're not being powered by the founder, they still have, they're still Titans, right? They still go after and try to eat people, and these are colossal Titans, so maybe they work differently, but it's not like them being disconnected from the founding Titan power makes them not a threat, right? They're still very much living creatures with their own free will to some extent, right? They're still a threat. That's what the whole point of, like, Season 1 was, right? Is that the Titans, even without Marley and the Titan shifters, the Titans on their own are enough of a threat. And then we see, Jean rushing forward with the help of all the shifters. He gets to the neck. He gives a final little teary-eyed look to Jean. Blows up the neck. Eren's head falls down. The centipede boy zooms out. It zooms out. Tries to attach to Eren's head. Reiner jumps in the way and stops it. I'm very worried for Reiner right now. Slams Reiner into the ground. Everyone else gets away except for Reiner and Armin on Falco. Right? Reiner should be okay because as Jean, I can't remember who it was. Someone correctly pointed out. Let me see. It'll say somewhere here. As Jean correctly pointed out, the Armored Titan is the one that's capable of withstanding the blast. We saw that in Season 3, right, when Reiner was able to withstand the blast from Bertolt, so he should be okay from this. And then we get this really nice panel of, like, Bertolt holding Kruger, Grisha, and Xavier, and then Xavier holding Armin. It's a really lovely little panel. And then the final panel of Armin saying goodbye to Eren as he blows it up. Now, okay. What's important to note is that the rumbling may be over, but that doesn't mean that, like, the event is over. You know what I mean? It's not like Eren's gonna be like, oh, you guys, you blew up my rumbling. Oh, well, let's just go back and have some tea. Like, that's not how it works. It's not as though having his rumbling stopped is going to change Eren's mind and he's going to go back to normal. It's like, no, Eren still presumably is alive, right? He's presumably still alive. Even though Armin said goodbye here, we don't know where Eren actually is. So presumably he's still alive, and even though the rumbling may have been stopped for now, the threat that he poses is still very much real. And this is where I could see potentially things turning on their heads, because Ymir is still the founder. Ymir is still the founder, right? And unless I'm mistaken, the founder does still have all of that power, right? Even though it seems as though Zeke was the one controlling... Well, not controlling, but even though Zeke was the one who was kind of powering the events, right? He was the one kind of lending power through his royal blood. The whole thing with the royal blood wasn't actually that... Yeah, but let me think about this. Like, Zeke wasn't actually controlling... The whole thing with royal blood wasn't that royal blood actually had some magical power, right? It was that the founder Ymir was the one who had the power, and it was because she had so much loyalty to the royal family that only people of royal blood could use the power. It wasn't actually that the royal blood had some kind of power within it. It was because Ymir was the one who was powerful and she only obeyed ones with royal blood. So now that I think about it, why did killing Zeke stop the rumbling? That actually is interesting. Huh. Yeah, there's a lot of things in this chapter which definitely make me wonder. Which definitely make me think, wait a minute, what's... like... I'm not going to say they're plot holes, because I feel like people are always too quick to jump on, like, oh, this chapter's bad, it's full with plot holes kind of thing, you know? Looking back to, like, Erin's trousers aren't ripped, therefore this entire chapter was a fucking dream. Going back to that kind of stuff that happened, like, 10, 20 chapters ago. So yeah, like, I'm not going to jump on the it's a plot hole bandwagon yet, but it's definitely something that kind of, like... I'm thinking about, because I thought the point was that the founder Ymir was the one who had control, and that people with royal blood were the only ones who could use the power because Ymir only obeyed people of royal blood. Now that Ymir was free from that, she could just do whatever the hell she wants, right? So I don't see why killing Zeke would actually stop the rumbling from happening. Maybe I'm missing something. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding, you know, that kind of the rules that Isayama put in place. But as far as I can think, I don't think that's how it works. Unless, but this is what I was kind of about to go into like a bit ago, but didn't. One possibility, and this is something I mentioned earlier in the chapter. What Attack on Titan likes to do is make things seem like they're working and then have them very suddenly not. And this is still 2 chapters from the end, right? I think the final chapter of the manga, the final chapter of the manga is going to be mostly dialogue, I imagine, right? Or at the very least, like, the last half of it is going to be dialogue, because it needs to wrap up the story. And Attack on Titan, at its core, has always been a story-driven show, not an action-driven show. The action is the vehicle through which the story is told, but the story is very much the core of what Attack on Titan is. So, the last chapter has to probably be very dialogue-heavy, which means that we still have 1 chapter left where potentially shit could actually go down that isn't just wrapping up the plot. You know what I mean? We still have potentially an entire chapter or like a chapter and a half's worth of things that could happen which aren't directly tied into just wrapping up the plot and saying goodbye and ending the show, right? Because what I'm thinking is that it's possible that this is like a false flag. Like, that things are gonna go wrong. Like, because, okay, with the Zeke thing, I didn't think killing Zeke would actually stop the rumbling. For me, that leaves 3 possibilities. Possibility 1 is that killing Zeke does stop the rumbling, and I was just wrong, right? Possibility 2 is that killing Zeke doesn't stop the rumbling, or, let me rephrase that, or, given the rules that Isayama has established so far, killing Zeke wouldn't stop the rumbling, but there's things that we are not aware of. You know, maybe it hasn't been fully explained to us, or maybe Isayama just, like, messed up a little bit, we'll have to see, that would explain as to why killing him did stop the rumbling, even though that wasn't what seemed to be the case using the logic that's happened so far. Or option 3 is that, in-universe, killing Zeke doesn't stop the rumbling, and killing Zeke hasn't stopped the rumbling. Because I could see, and this is where I'm getting into my theorizing, and maybe this is just, like, the desperate hopes of a person who wants, like, a slightly bleaker ending, is that perhaps, just maybe, this was an intentional trick by Ymir and by Eren, right? Where it's like, okay, their goal is to blow up Eren, using Armin's explosion. It's like, okay then, they've killed Zeke, they believe that killing Zeke will stop the rumbling, so, okay. Eren, let's stop the rumbling for a second, all right? Armin's gonna blow up. Boom. All right. You've used your trump card. Okay, let's continue the rumbling. You know, I could see that potentially being a thing that would happen, where it's like this is all a big trick, where killing, because as far as I can remember, killing Zeke shouldn't be able to stop the rumbling, unless I'm mistaken. Unless I'm completely misunderstanding how the rumbling works, or if Isayama hasn't explained it, or Isayama like retconned how it works. Unless something's up to where like my knowledge of how the rumbling has worked is incorrect, whether intentionally from the author or not. As far as I'm aware, killing Zeke shouldn't stop the rumbling. As far as I'm aware. So I do think it's a possibility that perhaps this is all like a big trick, where like Ymir saw all this happening. She saw with her own eyes Armin and Zeke, you know, waking up the people in Pats. He saw, you know, all this going. She saw all this going down, and she was like, "Okay, I'm literally connected to you all through Pats, so I quite literally know what you're thinking. So, okay, you're blowing up me with Armin is your trump card. Armin is the Colossal Titan, so he can only transform once. I know that because I'm the one who fucking created the Colossal Titan. I know he can only transform once. He's your trump card here. So I'm just going to let you guys think that you can win. Let Armin blow up, right? And then Eren is going to be alive because, I mean, I imagine his crystal, if he crystallizes himself, that's probably going to be enough to survive the explosion, right? I mean, if the armored Titan can survive the explosion, I have to imagine a crystal like surrounding the body would, right? Eren's going to crystallize, if he's even in the body and not using some Warhammer majiggery. The explosion's going to be over, their trump card's used up, Eren's body is going to reform because he's still alive, and then the rumbling's going to continue. You know, I could imagine this all being one big trick. Potentially. Because this does feel a little, to me anyway, this does feel a little like Avengers movie, kind of like, and then the day was saved and everyone lived kind of thing, you know? But that's what I'm saying, is that there's still 2 chapters left, right? There's still 2 chapters left. We don't know what's going to happen in those 2 chapters. And there's still room for things potentially to change. 2 chapters, like, Eren is still alive. I think that's pretty certain, right? Eren isn't dead yet. Even if he's suffered mortal wounds that will kill him as a result of this explosion, which in and of itself I kind of doubt, even if that's the case, I don't think that he's dead already. Eren as a character needs to have some kind of send-off. So Eren, even if he's mortally wounded, is at the very least alive in some capacity. And next chapter will go into that, right? Reiner and Eren are rivals. That's clear. Eren is still alive. Reiner is down there. He's survived the explosion. He only has 1 transformation left, which is the one he's currently in. So if he gets bitten out of the nape or beaten down to the point that his Titan body's like destroyed, he can't transform a second time, right? I could, even if my theory about this like rumbling destruction being a trick, where like the rumbling isn't actually over Ymir and Eren were just playing a 4D chess trick on them to make them think they'd won, and was actually just forcing them to use their trump card early and wasting their ability. Even if that's not the case, like I mentioned earlier, Eren is still alive. There's no way they kill off Eren so unceremoniously like that, right? Eren is still alive. And it's not like blowing Eren up is going to completely change Eren's viewpoint, right? So I think next chapter there will be some kind of confrontation with Eren, right? I don't think this is the end of the conflict yet. Even if the rumbling has actually been stopped, like genuinely this is actually the end of the rumbling, even if that's the case, I don't think the confrontation is done. Reiner and Eren are down there together, which in and of itself could lead to quite an interesting final confrontation, right? The 2 rivals going at it one final time and potentially Reiner getting that win he's always wanted, right? There's not been any deaths in this battle, which I feel like there's got to be more deaths, you know? This is Attack on Titan, right? This is the final battle of Attack on Titan, and as far as I'm aware, nobody's died yet. Oh, Zeke's died. My boy Zeke has died, which sucks. But like it was kind of different. Like, he wasn't killed in battle. It was like a noble sacrifice kind of thing, which is slightly different, right? We haven't had anyone like killed in battle, as far as I can remember. You know, like how like Pixis, for example, was, where he was killed, right? But yeah, I will say this, right? If this is actually the end of the conflict, I think it is a bit unsatisfying. And again, I'm going to need to have time to really think this over, right? I'm going to need to let this process in my head. Maybe in a month's time I'll feel exactly the same, or maybe in a month's time I'll feel completely different. Who knows? I'm going to need time to process it. Right now, though, my initial reaction is that the end of this conflict, if this is the actual end, which again, I'm pretty confident it isn't because Eren is still alive, and Eren's opinion isn't going to change. He's not going to stop with his plans. Like, well, I guess I'll just go back to living normally because you guys stopped me. It was all a fun little prank, guys, right? Like, I'm 99% confident the conflict isn't over because Eren is still alive, and Eren has no reason to just decide to stop because they won, right? Like, I feel like Eren's the kind of person that even if he knows he's going to lose, he's going to fight till his dying breath, right? He even said it himself. If you guys want to stop me, you're going to have to stop me from ever breathing again. So even if the rumbling is stopped, I feel like Eren's the kind of person who he's going to continue fighting till the moment he's dead, even if he knows that losing is inevitable. So, yeah, I highly doubt that this is the actual end of the conflict, but if it is, as fun as it was to read through with all the Titan shifters reappearing and all the fan service and all that cool stuff, I don't know, it's a bit of a, I'm not sure how I feel about it. And I think that's kind of my summary of the entire chapter, actually. The chapter was very enjoyable to read. I really enjoyed reading through it. It was very fun. It was filled with fan service. It was very entertaining. And it was very feel-good as well, because it was the heroes winning and coming out on top. It was very feel-good. But the critical side of me is skeptical. And I'm a person who takes time to really decide on things. I'm not the kind of person who can watch a movie and do a review of it in the next 10 minutes, right? I usually need like a long time, days, weeks even, to really settle on a decision. So I'm not saying either way. In a month's time, this could be my favorite Attack on Titan chapter ever. You know what I mean? But like, I'd say this is definitely the first time I've read an Attack on Titan chapter where I, like, after reading, I've been like, yeah, I'm gonna need to, I'm gonna need to think this over and see how much I like it, kind of thing. Because even with previous controversial chapters, I've usually been pretty positive on them, despite the general perception being kind of wishy-washy in general. But yeah, I could definitely see this one being a controversial one, without doubt. But yeah, I also see the possibility for this not being the actual end of the conflict. One, because Eren is still alive, and two, because there is a small possibility that this is all just like a trick, right? But again, I'm gonna have to think about it. Oh man, I think the one thing I can 100% say with certainty is that I am a little bit disappointed with how Zeke died. You know, I feel like he did get a nice send-off, you know, being the catalyst that allowed all of this to happen, you know, getting to what a beautiful day, if only I'd, you know, that kind of, it was a very nice send-off, but I feel like for a character like him, I thought he'd get a little bit more, you know. But I mean, it's better than him just already being dead. I know a lot of people were speculating that he was already dead, and had been dead since chapter 122. And I'm glad that at least is not true, but I can say with certainty that right now I am a little bit disappointed in the way Zeke died. It was very unceremonious and kind of just happened suddenly. But yeah, man. I feel like I could probably continue talking, but I'd end up just reiterating points I've already said. This final panel's really beautiful looking, by the way. It's super nice. But yeah. I feel like the conflict isn't over. I think the next chapter, the conflict is going to continue. Either because the rumbling is going to continue and this is all a trick, because again, unless I'm mistaken, I didn't think killing Zeke would actually stop the rumbling, so it could just be a trick. And if that's not the case, I still think, you know, Eren is alive. 99.9% chance Eren is not dead. And Eren is going to continue, you know, he's going to continue moving forward until he has his last breath. So I don't think he's going to just magically change his entire worldview because they beat him, right? So I think in one form or another, this conflict is guaranteed to continue next chapter, I think, in one form or another. We also didn't get a resolution to the people on the plateau shooting at each other, right? The Marleyans and the Eldians were shooting at each other with guns, or at least it was hinted at that there was some gunfire going on and that they were conflicting with each other still. We didn't get a resolution to that, so there's still loose ends that need to be tied up. exactly how paths work, how the paths dimension was created. We know why it was created, but not how it was created. There's still loose ends that need to be tied up. I don't think this conflict is over yet. I think we're going to see more of it in chapter 138. And also, if you're someone who really enjoyed this chapter, and you don't like how kind of critical I've been, keep in mind, like I said, I'm a kind of person who needs time to really decide on things. I've been critical of this chapter not because I dislike it, but because I really love Attack on Titan. It's my favorite show ever, right? It's one of my favorite things ever. So, like, you know, I like to really dive deep and think about it as critically and as, you know, deeply as I can. So when I see things I'm iffy about, you know, I talk about them. I could talk for ages about the things I loved about this chapter. I thought the action was really fun. I thought the panels are beautiful. The character stuff, if a little bit rushed, was very nice. The moment with Zeke dies, if a little bit rushed and unceremonial, was also quite beautiful in its own right, with him looking up at the sky. I think the progression of Zeke's character, in my opinion, even though it did feel rushed, it did make sense, I think. I just think it could have been spaced out a bit more. And I think it was a really rushed, kind of, but kind of beautiful in the same way, end to his character. Seeing all the Titan shifters again was awesome, especially people like Yamir, who I like, as bad as it sounds, I kind of forgot about her a lot of the time. You know, there's lots of stuff I really loved about this chapter, but I talk about the stuff I love about Attack on Titan all the time. You know, I've said these things 100 times per chapter reaction, so when I see things I'm not so keen on, my discussion naturally goes in that direction, not because I dislike the chapter, but because I've already talked about the things I love all the time, right? There's no point in reiterating it for the 10,000th time, right? But yeah, I'm going to need time to really think over this chapter. I feel like I want to be in the comments and talking to you a lot. I'll have to see, you know, how busy I am and how much time I get, but I'd be very interested to see the fan reception to this chapter, because I could definitely see this being a controversial one. Right now, my opinion of this chapter is positive. I'll say that. I thought the chapter was really fun. And while I could see people be like, oh, this chapter sucks, this is a terrible ending to the Rumbling, it was so Avengers movie, it was so like cliche and what do you call it? I could see people saying that. The way I think about it and the way I've always thought about it is that we don't know, right? When the Reiner and Bertolt reveal first happened in the manga, lots of people really hated Reiner and Bertolt. My logic was, well, we don't know. We don't know their story, we don't know their backstory. Let's hold on before we make judgments, right? When we learnt about the history of the world, well, didn't learn about, when we learnt about the theories about the history of the world, people were like, oh, the Eldian version is true. Oh, the Malayan version is true. And I was always like, well, let's see. Let's not jump to a conclusion, you know? Whenever chapters come out where people are like, oh, this is a retcon, this is false, this is bad, my logic has always been, well, hold on, let's see what happens, right? You know, in Season 3, Part 2, when Reiner had his head blown off and survived, lots of people were saying it was bullshit plot armor that didn't make any sense, and that Isayama had leaped the shark, or whatever the phrase is. And my opinion was, well, we don't know anything about Titan shifter powers, let's wait and see, right? And my logic still applies here. I think that everything, well, 99% of the things I'm iffy on this chapter, within the next 2 chapters, I could feel perfectly alright about. Killing Zeke being the thing that stops the Rumbling, right now I'm iffy on that because I thought the Rumbling worked differently. But if if later chapters explain it, or if I go back and realize, oh, I was actually mistaken the whole time on how this works, then that could completely change how I think about it. Or if it ends up being a trick, then for obvious reasons that would change how I think about it. This being the end of the conflict, obviously my opinion on that would change if it's not the end of the conflict and it continues next chapter, which I am very confident that it will. So my general opinion on this chapter is I really enjoyed it. It was super fun to read through. In terms of like enjoyment, it was a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. It was super enjoyable. From a critical perspective, I have issues with it. I have potential problems I see in it. But I have always been a person who says I'm going to wait and see. We still have 2 chapters left. A lot of stuff can happen in 2 chapters, right? A lot of stuff can happen in 2 chapters. And a lot of the issues I have with this chapter, you know, in 2 chapters' time, I could look back and be like, well, all of those issues I had are perfectly reasonable and explainable now that I look back on it, you know? So, yeah, I'm not coming to a definite conclusion right now because I think I think that would be unfair of me to do. I want to wait and see. I want to give it time. I want to think about it. I want to see what happens in future chapters. And yeah, I'm gonna think about it. And yeah, I could continue talking about this for ages. I could just keep going on and on and on and on about it. But I'm not gonna, because I feel like I'm gonna just keep reiterating points I've already made. So I'll try to continue the discussion in the comments maybe with you guys if I have the time. But yeah, thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, because that would be so appreciated. I'd really love it if you guys subscribed. It's always so nice to see new subscribers, because it knows that people actually enjoy my content and want to see more. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. And you can always unsubscribe if you end up changing your mind, so it's no big deal. And thank you all for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of the chapter. I'd love to talk about it and see what the general opinion is. And don't take what I've said in this discussion as being definitive, because like I've said a bunch of times now, I always take a long time to really form my opinions. And right now I'm not going either way. And I've always used the logic of let's wait and see. I want to wait and see what happens, how this plays out, how I feel about this in a month's time. So yeah, nothing I've said about this chapter is definitive, and I still enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.